The snow came down in thin, quiet sheets, soft as silk and sharp as needles. It blanketed the high plains of northern New Mexico with a deceptive calm. But beneath that silence, something terrible had happened. Clara Maddox stumbled through the white, her thin boots soaked, her shawl tattered, her hands raw from the cold. She was 16, or maybe 17. She had lost track of the days since her stepfather had thrown her out, since the preacher's wife accused her of consorting with spirits. It had started with whispers, then stares, then rocks through her window. Then fire. Now her town of Hollow Bluff was just a smudge on the horizon behind her, a place that had tried to erase her. She had no food, no fire, no hope. Clara fell to her knees in the snow near the edge of a frozen creek. Her breath hitched. Her fingers trembled as she tried to light the last match she'd hidden in her skirt. The flame sparked, flickered, died, gone, like everything else. She whispered to no one, "I don't want to die here." From the trees beyond the creek, something moved. She turned her head, too exhausted to be afraid. A dark shape on horseback, then another, and another. Warriors, Apache, painted faces, fur-wrapped coats, eyes sharp as the wind. Her breath caught. She had heard stories, horrible stories, and some that were worse than horrible. Stories of what happened to white girls lost in Apache territory. Clara's knees gave out. She collapsed, cheek pressed to the snow, too cold to scream. The warriors dismounted slowly, cautiously. One of them, taller than the others, knelt beside her. He didn't speak, just stared, his face unreadable. Clara closed her eyes, waiting. Not for death exactly, but for whatever came next. Then she felt it. Warmth. A blanket. Thick, heavy, pulled over her shoulders. Strong arms lifting her from the snow. She tried to fight, but she had nothing left, not even fear. She was asleep before they reached their camp. When Clara woke, she wasn't dead. She wasn't in the snow. She was warm. A fire crackled nearby. She lay inside a lodge, animal hide walls stitched tightly together, soft furs beneath her body. Her fingers twitched. Her skin burned, then tingled. Her eyes fluttered open. A woman sat beside her, hair in braids, face weathered but kind. She offered no words, only a bowl of steaming broth. Clara stared. "Drink," the woman said. Her English was thick, accented, but kind. Clara obeyed. The broth scalded her throat but filled her stomach like a fire. She whispered, hoarse, "Why didn't you leave me there?" The woman's gaze didn't change. "Because you were not meant to die in the snow." Before Clara could answer, the flap of the lodge opened. The tall warrior stepped inside. He said nothing, just studied her again. Eyes like storm clouds. She held his stare. "I'm Clara," she rasped. A pause. "I am Nantan," he said. He turned to the older woman. Spoke in a fast tongue Clara couldn't follow. The woman nodded and left. Nantan looked at Clara again. "They say you were thrown away." She flinched. "Is that what they told you?" "No," he said. "That is what your eyes say." Clara looked down. Her fingers twisted the edge of the blanket. "They think I'm cursed," she muttered. "That I brought sickness to their children. That I talked to ghosts." Nantan didn't flinch. "Did you?" She looked up. "What would you do if I said yes?" "I would say ghosts are wiser than men." That surprised her. She almost smiled. But then her face fell again. "They'll come looking," she said. "Settlers, with guns. If they find me here, they won't. You don't know them." "I know men," Nantan said. "I know fear." He stood, turned toward the flap, and added, "Eat. Rest. Tomorrow we speak again." And then he was gone. Clara sank back into the warmth. The fire hissed softly, and for the first time in days she didn't dream of fire or snow. She just slept. The next morning Clara awoke to laughter. Children's laughter. It was distant outside the lodge, woven in between the clink of tools, the creak of saddles, and the crackling of new fires. She blinked against the soft sunlight filtering through the hide walls. It smelled of smoke, leather, sage, and life. Not like Hollow Bluff, where even the sky had felt like stone. Her legs ached when she sat up, but she could move. That meant she was healing. A few minutes later, White Fawn, the older woman who had given her soup, returned with clean clothes, a simple deerskin dress, warmer and more practical than the rags she had worn before. Clara dressed slowly, wincing at every bruise. The burn marks on her wrists, where the townsfolk had tied her before casting her into the snow, still throbbed. "They did this to you," White Fawn said, kneeling to help her with the laces. Clara said nothing, but her silence spoke for her. Outside, the Apache camp buzzed with life. Men checked arrows. Women tended to fires, ground herbs, and stitched leather. Children ran barefoot in the dust, some staring at her as she passed, others whispering behind their hands. Suspicion lingered in the air, not loud, not violent, but heavy like a storm not yet broken. Nantan waited near the central fire, arms crossed. The wind tugged at the feathers in his braids. "You walk," he said with a nod. "Good." Clara didn't return the smile. "What now? Do you send me back?" "No." "Then what am I?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned and motioned for her to follow. They walked past tents and curious stares, past horses that snorted and pawed at the ground, until they reached a small ridge overlooking a wide valley. Snow still clung to the shaded parts of the hills, but below, the world stretched open and wild. "This is home," he said. "Yours, not mine." He turned his eyes on her. "Your people left you to die." "They were afraid." "And fear is an excuse?" Clara didn't answer. Instead, she looked out over the valley. Wind tugged at her dress, and for a moment she could almost believe she was part of something bigger than herself. But the moment passed quickly. "They think I'm marked," she muttered, "that I brought disease, that I cursed the town." Nantan was quiet. Then he said, "We have a word. Silta. It means the one between. Not spirit, not human, not one or the other." "A ghost," she said softly. He nodded. "Is that what you think I am?" she asked. "I think," he said slowly, "you are what the world tried to erase and failed." A silence stretched between them, long and strange and sacred. Then hoofbeats. Fast, urgent. A young warrior rode up the ridge, dismounted and spoke to Nantan in rushed Apache. His face was grim, shoulders tense. Clara didn't need to know the words to understand. Trouble. Nantan turned to her. "Come." They returned to the heart of the camp, where elders had already begun to gather. Taza, the elder Clara remembered from before, stood with a bowed head. Warriors clustered around him, and the mood had shifted. Sharp now, dangerous. Nantan raised his voice. "A scout has seen riders near the border. Settlers. Armed." Clara's heart sank. "They're looking for me." "Maybe," Taza said. "Or maybe they come for the same reason they always come." "To claim," Nantan muttered. "To burn." White Fawn stepped forward. "We should hide the girl." "No," Nantan replied. "That will only make her a target." Clara's fists clenched. "I don't want anyone to die because of me." Taza studied her for a long moment. "You were meant to burn, and yet here you stand. That means something." "They won't stop," Clara whispered. "They think I'm evil, that I brought this on myself. If they find me here," Nantan's voice cut like flint, "then let them find you standing." The camp moved quickly after that. Women packed supplies. Children were led towards safer ground. The warriors prepared, quiet, efficient, lethal. And Clara stood in the middle of it all. This girl who had been cast out, beaten, and left to freeze, watching as people who owed her nothing prepared to risk everything. Later, near the fire, Nantan handed her a bow. "Try," he said simply. "I've never—" "Then start now." She held it awkwardly at first, fingers trembling, but he showed her how to hold it, where to pull, when to breathe. She missed every target, then hit one, then missed two, then hit again. By the end, her arms ached, but her aim was better. "You learn fast," Nantan said. Clara swallowed. "I want to be ready." He nodded once, solemn. "Then remember, fear is not your enemy. Forgetting who you are is." That night, she didn't sleep. She sat beside the fire with the bow across her lap, eyes scanning the dark horizon, heart steady. She wasn't the girl in the snow anymore. She was the warning no one saw coming. By morning, the cold had broken. The Apache camp stirred under a sky streaked with blood-orange light, the stillness before dawn giving way to motion. Horses were saddled, weapons checked, old men smoked quietly, their eyes fixed on the eastern horizon. Clara stood beside Nantan as he spoke with Taza and two others, pointing to a charcoal map drawn on a hide stretched between two stones. She didn't understand every word, but she didn't have to. The message was clear. The settlers were close. Too close. How many? She asked. 20. Maybe more, Nantan said without looking at her. And they know I'm here? Taza finally turned. They think you were stolen, that you were made savage. Clara's mouth went dry. They'll burn everything to make that true. A beat of silence. Then Taza said, then we make it false. The camp was moving now, not in panic, but in rhythm. Children led away toward the cliffs. Fires doused. Warriors positioned along the rocks, blending into the stone and brush. Traps were set, not with steel, but with cunning. A broken wagon near the trail, a campfire still smoking, as if travelers had fled in haste. They wanted the settlers to come charging in, and they would. Clara sat alone at the edge of camp, her hands wrapped around the bow Nantan had given her. She had never held a weapon before last night. Now it felt natural in her grip. Not safe, but right. White Fawn appeared at her side and handed her something wrapped in deer hide. Inside was a knife, bone-handled, obsidian-tipped, sharp enough to slice breath from the air. No one will protect your story, White Fawn said softly. You must tell it with blood if you must. I'm not a warrior, Clara whispered. White Fawn's eyes were calm, unflinching. Then be something worse. Suddenly a whistle split the air. One of the Apache scouts raced into view, dust trailing behind him. He shouted in Apache, and the ripple of alarm spread instantly through the camp. Nantan moved fast, drawing his rifle. They've taken the bluff. They come from both sides. Clara stood. I can help. Taza turned. You know the white mind. How would they come? She closed her eyes, breathed deep, thought back to Hollow Bluff, the way they'd surrounded her house, the way they lit the first fire not at the front door, but at the back. They'll flank, she said, and they'll light everything first. Taza's jaw clenched. He nodded to Nantan. Take her to the second ridge. I'm not running, Clara snapped. You're watching, Nantan corrected. If they break the line, we need eyes. It wasn't cowardice, it was survival. She followed him to a narrow rise that overlooked the canyon. From there, she could see the whole camp, the traps, the hidden warriors, the lifeblood of the people who had saved her. And then dust on the far trail. Settlers. They came not with stealth, but with fury. Horses charged over the ridge, guns drawn, boots slamming into stirrups. They wore fear like armor and carried torches like a gospel. She saw familiar faces, the blacksmith, the butcher's son, and at the front of them all, Reverend Caleb Monroe, her father. He sat tall in the saddle, his black coat whipping behind him like a flag. A rifle rested across his lap. His mouth moved, though she couldn't hear the words. But she knew the sermon. You will be saved, he had once told her, even if it means burning the sin from your bones. And now here he was, riding to finish what he had started. Clara's stomach turned to stone. Then, chaos. The moment the riders hit the bait, arrows flew from the rocks above. Silent, deadly. Men screamed. Horses bucked. One torch fell to the ground and set the brush alight, casting smoke across the canyon like a shroud. Gunfire rang out. The Apache moved like shadows, fast, silent, brutal. Not a war cry among them, only the rhythm of survival. Clara stood at the ridge, trembling. She could see Nantan below, moving between stones. His rifle barked once, twice. A settler spun and fell. Then her father dismounted. Clara's blood went cold. He began shouting orders, rallying the remaining men, pulling them into a circle. From his coat, he pulled something. A white cloth. A flag. Number A trap. She watched as he raised it high, shouting toward the Apache line. I come for my daughter, he bellowed. Return her, and we end this. The battle stalled. Even the wind stopped. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Every eye turned to her. She stepped forward on the ridge. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She only said loud and clear, "I'm not yours." The words echoed through the canyon. The Reverend turned slowly, staring up at her. His face twisted into something monstrous, rage and disbelief. "You ungrateful wretch," he snarled. "You think those devils will protect you?" "I don't need protection," she said. "I need them to stay alive." He raised his rifle. So did she. Two shots rang out at once. One bullet missed, the other didn't. Clara's arrow struck clean, knocking the rifle from his hand. He fell back, howling. And then the battle resumed. Gunfire. Screams. The snap of bone and arrow and fire. But Clara didn't run. She descended the ridge. She ran toward the fight, toward the family who had saved her, toward the blood she could not avoid. Because ghosts don't hide. They haunt. And she wasn't done yet. The smoke rose thick over the canyon, curling skyward like the last breath of a dying god. Ash clung to Clara's skin, settling in her eyelashes, her hair, her lungs. The wind howled low and steady through the pass, carrying with it the scent of blood, gunpowder, and something deeper. Finality. The settlers had broken. They fled in pieces, scattered through the rocks and brush, tripping over their own fallen. Of the 40 that had come, fewer than half rode away. The rest lay still among the sagebrush and sand. Clara stood in the center of it all, bow still in hand, arrow ready, but there were no more targets, just silence, just breathe. And her father. He lay half buried beneath a fallen horse, his arm bent wrong, his face pale. He looked up at her with eyes that had once terrified her. Now they were empty. "You made your choice," he rasped. Clara knelt beside him, not in mercy, not in mourning, but in witness. "You made mine for me the day you tied that rope around my wrists," she said. "This was always coming." He coughed, spitting blood into the dirt. "You think they'll keep you? A white girl who's forgotten her place?" She stood slowly, looking toward the ridge where Tassa and the others had begun tending to the wounded, gathering the lost. A boy no older than 10 helped lift a fallen warrior, or a girl with braids ran to her mother, crying with relief. Clara looked back down at him. "I haven't forgotten anything," she said. "I just stopped apologizing for surviving." She turned her back on him and didn't look back. By dusk, the Apache had begun their quiet rituals of mourning. There was no wailing, no flailing grief, just steady hands wrapping bodies in cloth, placing feathers in the hair of the dead, and whispering names into the wind. Fires were lit, not for warmth, but for memory. Clara sat near one of them, her arms scraped, her bow laid across her lap. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from release. The fight was over. Her fight was over. Chick approached, his coat streaked with ash, his face drawn and hollowed. "You didn't run," he said, sitting beside her. "I think I forgot how." He cracked a smile. "You hit him. That arrow, your father, it took his rifle clean from his hands." She nodded. "He didn't see it coming." "No one ever does." They sat in silence. Above them, the stars began to crawl across the sky like slow-moving ghosts. "What happens now?" she asked. Chick's face turned thoughtful. "Taza says the town will send more. Maybe not tomorrow, but they'll come. With papers, with soldiers, with reasons, and we'll fight again?" He looked at her. "No," he said. "We live, we prepare. And when they come, we remind them. We don't burn easy." 3 days later, they buried the last of the fallen warriors. Clara helped build the cairns, stones stacked carefully, offerings of bone and feather laid at the base. She worked with the others, her hands blistered, her arms sore, her heart steady. When it was done, Tassa stood before her. "You were born in fires," he said, "but you did not become ash." "I don't feel like a hero," she admitted. "Good," he replied. "Heroes die. You are something better. You endured." He reached into a pouch and handed her a strip of carved leather, tied with beads and a small obsidian arrowhead. "Wear it, and when they speak your name, let them know." She didn't run. Clara took it, her throat tight. Then Taza turned to the others. "She is one of us," he said, "not by blood, but by fire." And the warriors nodded, one by one, not out of obligation, but recognition. That night, Clara sat alone on the ridge, watching the moon rise over the jagged hills. Below, the Apache camp stirred with quiet life. Children's laughter, soft voices, the occasional bark of a dog. She breathed in deep, the scent of sage and dust. Not home, but not exile either. A place rebuilt with scar tissue. Chick joined her, his shadow long in the moonlight. "You could leave," he said. "I know. There's a trail west. Nobody would stop you." She glanced at him, a small smile playing at her lips. "Would you?" He shrugged. "Only if you asked me to." She looked back at the stars. "I don't want to go," she said. "Not yet." He nodded. "Then we ride at sunrise to the high ground. There's a spring up there. And peace, maybe." She tilted her head. "You think that's real?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The fire within her was still burning. Not for vengeance anymore. Not even for justice. But for life. She had walked out of the flames and into her own story. And now, the world would remember her. Not as the girl who burned, but the woman who rose,